important, significant discussion. And I do think also, speaking personally as a journalist, it's very, very ambitious, I think, almost to think about peace in the Middle East. But we are hosted by a gentleman who has dedicated his life to trying to bring about peace, and we will be hearing much more about him later in the evening, and that is Mr. Yasser bin Homran, who's a peace campaigner from Saudi Arabia. It's probably fair to say that at the moment, the Middle East and North Africa are the least peaceful regions of the world. Efforts to bring peace, we're all gathered here to try and promote that. We'll be hearing from a panel of distinguished speakers who will try to explain some of the complexities, the reasons for the violence and sectarian unrest, and point to possible solutions. There are so many questions to ask about whether there were stages when the escalation of violence could have been averted, the relative merits of intervention and non-intervention, and the far-reaching consequences if there is no peaceful resolution. Our panelists are from various parts of the Middle East, from India, and from Pakistan. And this really reflects how borders these days seem to be becoming less relevant, and that what happens in one part of the world can have far-reaching consequences. For example, here in Britain, as we've seen, there's growing alarm about the number of young Muslims choosing to fight in Syria and other trouble spots, leading to fears that they will return to Britain and perhaps set their sights on targets here. There was the Today program, if anyone heard it this morning on the radio. They had a young boy, I'm saying he must have been 17, 18, who was speaking with great passion about his intention to go to Syria. He didn't know why, he just said he was very angry. He said his family were originally from Pakistan, but he felt that the victims and those who were being killed in Syria were their brothers and sisters. He was angry and he wanted to kill them in return. And I think he didn't know why, he didn't know who exactly was fighting, and that is what is actually terrifying. And which is why I think it is so important to have discussions like this, because this is a way for us to understand what is going on behind the headlines. So can I now just invite Mr. Vijay Mehta, who is responsible partly for organizing this event, along with Mr. Yasser bin Ali bin Homran. Vijay is the chair of Uniting for Peace, president of the Mehta Center, and founding trustee of Fortune Forum charity. He is an author and has recently written The Economics of Killing, How the West Fuels Wars and Poverty in the Developing World. It's published by Pluto Press. So please welcome Vijay Mehta.
Thank you, Rita. And people who don't know who Rita Payne is, she was working for over 30 years in the BBC, and she's the editor, director of Global Magazine, a freelance journalist and media advisor. And as I said, she's been working before for the BBC Asia editor and BBC World. Good evening and welcome to this very important discussion today about moving towards peace in Middle East and North Africa. And let me say in the beginning that it is us in the peace movement and activists, and it's our passion which drives all the changes in the world. Thank you, Mr. Yasser Ali bin Ali Humran, a peace campaigner, as Rita said, from Middle East, and who is the chief sponsor of the event. So thank you very much, Mr. Yasser. Let me start by giving you two dates for your diary. 8th of October is our annual Erskine Childers Lecture, and our keynote speaker is Alfred D. Gies, United Nations Human Rights Special Rapporteur. And one on the 25th of November, and that is our annual conference, and we are doing the annual conference this year in Houses of Parliament, UK. And that is on who rules the world. Allow me to say a few words about our organization, Uniting for Peace. We are a 34-year-old organization and is devoted to creating and promoting global culture of peace, non-violence, and poverty reduction. And there are many, many, many famous names associated with our organization. Nobel Peace Prize winners, cabinet ministers, members of parliament, etc., etc. Let me move on to my talk of today, to start by saying that, as Rita said as well, the greater Middle East is once again at a boiling point. If you see some of the countries which I'm going to mention, Syria, the conflict is on for 4 years, 160,000 people have lost their lives, and neighboring countries of Turkey, Jordan, and Lebanon are inundated with refugees. Iraq, as you know already, is driven by religious and ethnic hatred, is in the grip of an invasion by ISIS, which I think overshadows the brutality of Al-Qaeda. In Afghanistan, democratic elections are being overshadowed by the threat of a resurgent Taliban, with a possibility of a conflict spilling over to Pakistan. We got some speakers from Pakistan, they will be telling us a bit more. But whatever the agenda behind this violence, the fact is this violence is costing us, the global community, $9.8 trillion US dollars. To put it another perspective, to make it easy to understand, 1,350 US dollars per person living on this earth. And now I'm going to discuss the specific topic of this evening, which is the Middle East conflict. All these conflicts, I said before, have got a great impact on Israel-Palestine conflict and the factors which are responsible for carrying it out. So, it begs the question that is peace, security, and stability possible in the Middle East? The answer is yes. It is possible if you get all parties to the dispute, including Israelis, Palestinians, Hamas, Hezbollah, and their proxies, United States, European Union, and the Arab countries, to get involved in earnest and hammer out a mutually consensus agreement. I think it's more easier to broker the peace now because of the Palestinian Unity Government, to which European Union and United States are willing to work with. If an important lesson we can learn from recent invasion of Iraq by ISIS, it is that violent, sectarian politics do not work. Instead, what works or what will work is equal power sharing structure between Shias, Sunnis, and Kurds. What I'm going to do in the short talk I have got today is to explore the obstacles to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, examine the Arab League Peace Initiative, the role of United States in brokering peace, and a successful peace process of Northern Ireland called the Good Friday Agreement. I'm going to say something about that and what are the lessons we can learn for the Middle East conflict. So what are the obstacles to Middle East conflict? First of all, Palestinians are dealing with a right-wing government who are not willing to adopt moderate policies. Even worse off, they are building new settlements. Secondly, disillusionment of citizens and youth who have lost all hope for peace and angry, violent, and resentful. Thirdly, no strong condemnation of Israel or effort by international community to take action to put an end to the crimes committed by the occupation. The efforts of US governments, that's number 4, in resolving the conflict, but are hindered by not being an honest and impartial broker. Both parties sticking to their position of one state, two state solution and confusing and delaying the issue. Of course, the recent conflicts in Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, and Pakistan are a grave threat to peace in the region, and only beneficiary of this ongoing conflict and wars in the region are the oil suppliers, arms dealers, and the